All right, guys, we are live with episode number 368 of This Week in Photo. Here we go. Welcome back to TWiP. I am your host, Frederick Van Johnson. Joining me today on the show to discuss the world of photography and more are Mr. Martin Bailey and Mr. Giulio Sciorio. Hey, dudes, how you doing?
How's it
Hey
going, man?
guys.
It's going great. It's good to see you. Martin, you haven't been on in a while. I haven't seen you in forever. You've been petting snow monkeys again? What's going on?
No, I was here last month. It's been a month. That's probably what it is.
Yeah, it feels like it's been about a month. It seems like I see you more often than that. What's been happening in the last month?
I got started in the Arcanum, which has been a blast.
Yeah, I heard about that. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, got the cohorts up to the full numbers now, and we're rolling, doing critique sessions and things. It's been a good experience so far, and I'm looking forward to continuing with that.
Excellent.
Also, just released information on a new Namibia tour next year, which is going to be amazing. It's pretty much the same tour that I did last year, but we've got a few changes, and it's like 16 days in total. So it's a good length tour as well. Yeah.
Wow, you've been playing around. All right. 16 days. Wow.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those tours that you leave home and you get back feeling like a year older, but it's good. I'm looking forward to getting started on that as well.
But you get back home feeling a year older and with a lifetime of experiences and new friends and great photos, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's a good experience. I'm doing that with a friend, the same guy that I was there with last year, Jeremy Woodhouse. Really experienced photographer, and it's great teaming up with him.
Cool. And then is that posted already on your site at Martin Bailey Photography?
Yeah, it cycles through on the top screen, but if anyone's interested, if you go to mbp.ac/Namibia 2015. That'll take you straight over to Jeremy's site, and you can take a look at the details there.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a lot to remember if people are driving, so we'll just link to it in the show notes for this episode. So, cool. Well, awesome. Welcome back on the show, Bird.
Thanks.
And Mr. Giulio Sciorio, what's going on, man? Smallcamerabigpicture.com. What's happening?
Oh, man, just getting over the 4th of July, the weekend. It was quite an adventure, to say the least. And just like Martin was saying, I'm also proud to be one of the masters of the Arcanum. I'm kind of like a master in training. So I still haven't quite learned to dodge the spears or walk across the rice paper without leaving a trace, but I'm getting there.
You're getting there. Yeah. And what's going on shooting-wise? What have you been up to photography-wise?
I've been experimenting with a lot of abstract types of animation. Nothing I've actually really released yet. I got some kind of stuff on Instagram, but I'm just I'm so inspired by the era of photography that we're in that I'm really rethinking everything. Do I need to be a specialist in portraits, or can I now go into being a generalist and do fine art abstracts and then portraits, and can all this be commercially viable? And so I'm trying to answer all these questions by creating with. Sometimes I'm actually making my own lens, and which is it's pretty rad. I'll have to show you what I'm done. It's in progress, and I bought some this really old kaleidoscope lens, which is like this big, and it connects to the front of the GH4, and I'm doing all this experimental stuff. So we'll see where it goes, but.
Wow, it's you are the true multi-mediographer. Then it sounds like you are dabbling in all. Pretty soon you'll be like splattering paint on the front of your lens to see what kind of effects.
We used to do Vaseline. Remember? I don't know if you remember the colored Vaseline.
Yeah, I remember that.
So maybe we'll get back into that.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, analog is where it's at, man. Bring it on.
It is. It is.
All right, guys, before we jump into the news, we got a bunch of cool stuff to talk about. I want to thank the first sponsor for this episode of This Week in Photo, and that's our friends over at Squarespace.com. All right, guys, this first story is about smart glass, and the headline is Smart Glass Could Transform Your Smartphone Cameras. Now, I want to differentiate this smart glass because I recently got an Xbox One, and there is the Xbox app that goes on your phone and your iPad or whatever device you have, and it's called Smart Glass. So this is not that smart glass. This is actually glass that has intelligence. So you can basically, according to the article, you can introduce. It has an electrochromic material that is sometimes referred to as smart glass. That when you apply a current to it, or heat to it, or light to it, or some other stimuli to this glass, it does things. In the case of photography, it can darken itself, right? So, which means it's kind of an aperture in some ways, right? Or at least a neutral density filter, right? So this is interesting when I saw this, because we talk about all these different technologies on This Week in Photo a lot, from the Lytro light field camera to, what do you call it, calculations within the camera to do things like fake depth of field and predictive all this cool stuff that seemed to be coming to the fore. Now we're seeing glass that can do these cool kinds of things. Martin, I want to throw it to you first. When you see something like this, is this, I mean, because there's two sides of the fence. When you talk to photographers, they seem to be bifurcated in terms of, on the left side, there's the purists. If you touch anything, if it's not, glass and silver halide, then it's not real photography. Then on the right side, there's me. there's technology. Bring it on, man. Let's create all kinds of crazy stuff and use all the gear and all this stuff. Where do you fall in that? And does this smart glass scare you, or do you like, whatever? This is another gimmick.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a gimmick. I think it's in the use cases that they're talking about in the article, that it looks as though they're actually they're using it to actually form an aperture for smartphones. So they probably can apply a current in a certain way that it actually makes a circle that they can increase the size of or decrease the size of. So
exactly,
I mean, they touch on it in there that they could, what it will basically allow them to do is to put in wider, bigger optics in the phone. Without having to go into all of the mechanical side of actually having a mechanical leaf-based aperture in there. And so if you can build an aperture in, then it basically gives you the ability to either have bigger lenses, bigger optics, and then obviously that leads to shallow depth of field. But then you still need a way to make the aperture smaller, or to let less light in bright conditions. And I think that's probably the immediate thing that they're going to be wanting to do. But as you touched on as well, the possible, I don't know how granular once you start to change pixels or pigment in glass, things like that, however it's done, I'm not sure how fine that is. But if it could be used as a neutral density filter, I can also see them perhaps building in maybe a 1 to 20 stop neutral density filter in a DSLR. Just have that sitting over the sensor or at the back, or maybe build them into the lenses, but that seems a little bit like the wrong way to do it at this point. But no, I mean, I'm definitely like you. I don't necessarily jump on every piece of technology, but I'm a techie. I love to see the new stuff coming along. I think that it can be gimmicky, but this probably will just help them to take smartphone cameras to the next level, which is going to be a good thing. I mean, I don't use my smartphone for much more than, I'll take the odd what I consider artistic photo, but as in occasional artistic photo. But I'm not a big on smartphone photography, because to me it just doesn't seem as though the quality's quite there. But things like this are definitely going to take it. I was saying the same thing about mirrorless 2-3 years ago, and now they're ready. Yeah. So it's one of those things that's going to just propel it into the next, put smartphone photography into the next level, really.
It's funny, I didn't think about this, because I remember, man, a couple of years ago I was in New York City at some restaurant or bar or something, and I remember going into the restroom, and the restroom area was lined with male and female down one row, and all the glass the doors to the stalls were glass, but they would, as soon as it detected a body in there and the door shut, it would instantly go opaque. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. Like, I need this in my house.
They've got those in Japan, and they're actually in the middle of the street. And you get in, and you're surrounded by crowds of people, and then you close the door, and it's ooh.
And it's a
Yeah,
restroom. You actually.
yeah, it's a restroom. I've only seen it on the news, but there's, it's one of those things people are queuing up to get in, and but
Wow,
the
that looks
thing
like
is,
that might be a ripe target for hacking. I'm just saying.
exactly. I mean, you can just imagine you get in there and start doing your business, and next thing that like the power goes down. I imagine they've got some sort of a safety thing where if the power goes off, they stay up, they stay dark, they stay
Yeah.
opaque. But
Yeah.
that aside, it's fun technology.
It is. I mean, you could see the technology in cars. Imagine if you could just, dim have your windows tint depending on
Yeah.
how strong the sun is or how legal it is in the particular state you're driving through.
Oh yeah, there'd be some fun legislation around that, but yeah, the possibilities are pretty huge.
It's crazy. Julia, what about you? I know you saw this and you're like, okay, I need this in all my mirrorless cameras right now. Infinitely variable neutral density filter that I can preset. Would you use something like this, or is it just 100%. A little bit too much tech?
No, I would. I mean, as far as having filters built into my lenses, I would use it 100%. I mean, more so than just a neutral density filter. What if I was shooting black and white and I can add a true yellow filter, or what about a circular polarizer? That's how I would envision using this technology. Off the bat, like whether it's gimmicky or not really depends on the application that's developed for the technology. But initially I think, okay, well, wait a second. I had this technology in my Casio watch like in the 80s, right? Light turns on.
LCD.
Light turns off. So it seems like it's on the surface. It's I don't want to trivialize the technology, but it seems like it's a more advanced version of a basic LCD sandwich between glass. Maybe I'm sure it's more to it than that.
I don't know. It sounds exactly like that, actually. I mean, you apply a current and things go from not on to an on state. That is that's LCD technology, right? So.
It kind of also reminds me of the transition glasses, the eyeglasses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
I think
Reactor light.
Yeah, I think it could be really cool. It just depends on how they apply it and what technology partners they use to integrate that into, say, like a really, really small GM1 or something with a lens that has all sorts of cool features. I don't know, but something to that effect.
Or the next iteration, or maybe version 3 of Google Glass, right? So actually have glasses that can turn opaque and then project and then turn clear, and I don't know. I'm no futurist, but it just sounds cool.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know. There's all these innovations coming that it feels like. I always say this. It feels like we were born too early. Maybe not you, Julia, but it feels like we were born too early, and all this cool stuff's gonna hit right as my EKG thing is going flat. Or something.
Right. Well, you'll get your what is it? The trend. You'll be transcendent.
Yes.
Whatever, the Transcendent Frederick,
I saw that movie, by the way, that the Johnny Depp movie that's out on iTunes now, Transcendence. Horrible. Anyway, but it experiments. It talks about the whole idea of the singularity. The merging of processing power or processing power surpassing brain power, and then computers being smarter than we are, and all that stuff. That part of it is interesting, but I think they went overboard with the psi and the phi. So some of the phi didn't necessarily mesh with the psi, on that movie. So,
One quick thought about those bathrooms. I'm thinking, what if the power goes off? And you're kind of doing your business or something.
That's right. That's why it would have to, the legislation would have to state that if you're going to put in this kind of technology, the default state has to be opaque.
Until somebody hacks it.
Yeah, when power's on, you can control on and off, but default is opaque, I think. Makes sense.
I would say that the default should be what it was in when the power went off, because if you, like you were saying, Frederick, if it's in the windshield of a car and the power goes off, obviously you've got your own power in the car, but if something goes wrong and the default is opaque, okay, crash.
That could lead to some recalls. Yeah. Yes, I sit corrected. Thank you, Martin. That would end badly. Yeah, especially in glasses as well. You know,
Hmm.
your
Yeah.
battery runs out and now you're blind. You can't see anything. You're on a
Yeah.
motorcycle. You know? All right. Enough about that. We should name the show This Week in Future type stuff, or bounce
Yeah.
this topic over to Leo on This Week in Tech. They can talk about it. All right, guys. So story number 2 is about an iOS app. It's called Shutter. So last fall, a company called Stream Nation released a cloud storage solution that was targeted at photographers and videographers, and the cloud service allowed you to back up a variety of file formats, including RAW, all for a very reasonable price. Unlimited plans were $20 per month. The news is now they've released a new camera app for iOS called Shutter, and along with the app, they're now including free, unlimited. Those two words don't generally go together, and there's always an asterisk somewhere. But free, unlimited cloud storage with a bunch of other features. Originally, they were going to offer just 5 gigabytes of storage, but Amazon and Jeff Bezos and crew over there announced their Fire Phone with unlimited cloud storage, and Stream Nation then changed their game and said they're going to offer unlimited for free. So, Julio, what are your thoughts on this? So this seems to be the latest sort of player to show up to the cloud storage party and try to woo us photographers to put all our stuff in the cloud. You know, I feel like I'm leading the witness with my sort of derogatory tone. Let me rephrase that. This is an awesome solution, Julio. Would you use this?
I'm definitely going to experiment with it. I love cloud services, and I store a lot of my stuff between Google Drive and Dropbox. I can't decide which one I like more. You know, they're both fantastic services. Then we have, and this is the one thing that's keeping me from really digging into anything else. We have the new, what is it, iCloud Drive coming out in the fall, which reminds me of remember the old .Mac drive that they had back in the day?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like
iDrive and all that, you know, but I'm sure Apple doesn't want you to remember that because that never worked right. So hopefully this will work right, but, you know, because they've had time to get it right, so this should be bulletproof. But, yeah, the iDrive and all that stuff was not a good scene.
I'm curious. I mean, if I'm shooting, if I can upload to the service from the camera roll, then that means that I can shoot a ton of stuff in 4K with GH4 or whatever, and connect it to my iPad, have it back up online. That's cool. But I consider the cloud drives to be like an individual hard drive, so I don't put all my eggs in one basket. So I don't have everything on Dropbox, and I don't have everything on Google Drive. I kind of mix it up. So free space is really appealing, but
you can get that everywhere. I mean, you can get that from Box. Microsoft is offering free space with their OneDrive, and it's free. The cloud. There's a lot of clouds apparently, so there's a lot of space in the cloud to put our stuff. So I think the question is, does this woo you to use their app to upload through it? And I didn't see. I know they were talking about RAW files initially, but I don't know. Are RAW files included now? And do you have to copy RAW files to your iOS device and then pump them up to their cloud, which is, you know, how would that whole thing work? Seems like bandwidth is a limiting factor here. I don't know.
Certainly. I mean, if you're on the go, you know, like I have all my devices connected with 4G, but that data would get eaten up like in an afternoon.
One shot. It's over.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's. You know, the thing is, raw photos are not built into iOS 7. I believe they will be in iOS 8, but not in iOS 7. So I'm curious, and as far as once you get the raw file into their service, what can you do with it at that point? Are you able to just kind of download it, say, into your Lightroom library? I'm not sure.
And then Martin, I'll throw it back to you now. So considering all this, so Julio's optimistic about this. Is, you know, but me being my, you know, devil's advocate sort of pessimist self, I look at this, I'm like, well, why not just wait till you get home and copy it over? You know, why? I mean, is this a you know, a cure in search of a disease, or is it something innovative?
I think it's a marketing tactic. You know, it says in the article that the main reason that they're giving free space in the phone app Shutter is so that they can woo people into the Stream Nation paid plan.
Of course,
And
yeah.
that, that's a fair enough thing to do. And I think that for a lot of people, it will be it'll be a good system, good service. The You were saying earlier about what do you do with your raw files. I mean, I think the
Right.
thing is you've really got to have the PC version, or the computer, Mac, PC, whatever version, the paid version probably. I mean, the plans are relatively competitive, but to get to unlimited, the $19 a month unlimited plan. When you think about it, I don't need personally. I don't need cloud for my backup. I mean, I
Right.
use Backblaze, and Backblaze is like $45 a year if you do sign up for 2 years, $50 a year. I've got 7 terabytes of data on Backblaze.
Jeez. So they love you, don't they?
Yeah. Well, I'm probably one of their less economic or less,
Yeah, you're the
whatever.
rounding error. Yeah.
Right. So they're probably basing that $50 on your average person that's probably going to put a few hundred gigabytes up there max. But the thing is with that though is that it takes. If I was to start to upload that again now, even with a computer on 24/7, it's still going to take me at least 3 or 4 months, maybe even a year or so, to get that back into the cloud. So once you've got that amount of data, you don't want to be switching it around. But I think that for a consumer or maybe a prosumer user that has, the difference obviously with Backblaze and this is that Backblaze doesn't really, you can access files, but it's not like a cloud drive. And the Stream Nation solution actually seems like, looking at their website, it looks as though they're tying in pretty well with Lightroom, and they've got this, they keep pushing the really nice timeline view and things like that. So Backblaze, I can upload anything that I want. With this, it's really imagery. So if you're looking for a cloud solution that is image centric and has some nice bells and whistles, then $19 a month is not over the top, and you could argue that Backblaze is too cheap anyway. So money wise, I think it's okay, but I think that it's one of those things that you've just got to make a decision. If you really are looking for a media server or some sort of a, not server, but somewhere to keep and share your media across devices, I think it could be a solution.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand it, because I think most of the people on the planet are either using Android, and Google, or Apple and iOS, right? So, and each of those companies have awesome solutions for uploading images and sharing them online. So, and then Apple's offering is going to get even stronger, when they come out with iOS 8 and the new Photos app, and all the innovations that they're doing over there. Is this, and by this company making the move to go to free for their unlimited plan, is this them saying, okay, let's get as many people locked in and paid and subscribed as quick as possible before iOS 8 hits, because once that hits, our chances of getting new customers are going to drop dramatically. Is that plausible, or is this something? Am I missing something with regard to what Google and Apple are already offering?
Well, I think it's definitely possible that that's what's happening. I don't know what the changes are going to be in iOS 8 or in the in the upcoming Mac OS release.
Yeah.
I think that at the moment the iCloud is still relatively expensive as far as cloud storage is concerned.
Yeah.
So I don't actually use cloud storage other than Dropbox. I use Dropbox, and Dropbox is not cheap. If you want to go over 50, I think it's 100 gigabytes now. You get in the base account. The free account's like 2 gigabytes, something like that. But if you pay for it, then 100 gigabytes not a lot either. But personally, if I need to share photos, all I do is I've got all of my images in my library are backed up into 2 Drobos. I actually, my fault-tolerant Drobo, I don't trust to the point where it's my only backup. I've actually got two Drobos that mirror each other, so I've got fault tolerance with. But then one of those is hooked up to Backblaze, and everything that sits on that Drobo goes into the cloud.
That's great. That's great.
And that's like me covered as far as backups is concerned. But what I do though, when I want to actually share images, I've started to use Lightroom. The Lightroom portable app, that's actually turning out. We spoke about it I think it was last month when I came. I've started using that now, and apart from the fact that I can't use it for videos, it's actually a really good app, and it's a great way to show people images. What I've been doing so far, and I'll probably continue to do, is when I've gone through my images from a shoot, I will just export a JPEG, a full-size JPEG file, to a folder on my hard drive, and the moment I plug my phone back into the a sync port or my iPad, it automatically syncs those folders, those new JPEGs, to my phone and everything anyway. Nice. So I'm pretty much covered. I think that the people that are going to benefit from this sort of thing the most are the people that don't really either want to spend the time figuring that out, or they really just want a much simpler solution. So I think it really depends on how organized your digital workflow is, and right. Some people are going to benefit from it.
Yeah, no, Julio, you come at it from the opposite end of the spectrum. Like Martin, you look behind him there; he's got prints, right, and physical ink on paper back there, which is awesome. You don't do that, right? You're not a printing person. You're digital. You're online. You're sharing. Mm-hmm. And I remember you and I sitting down one time, and I forget what state we were in, but we were having a conversation about your workflow. And you're like, everything is digital, even billing, and it just happens. You capture digitally, you share it digitally, you get paid digitally. When you see something like this from these guys, as a digital photographer, for lack of a better phrase, is this like, okay, this is awesome, this is a move in the right direction, unlimited, I'm going to put all my stuff over there? What do you think?
Well, it's certainly a move in the right direction, but it does make me question, what do they know that we don't know about what's coming in the fall, or what's coming from Apple or from Google? Because that's telling. If they're like, dude, we're just going to give away the farm, it's all free. So then, of course, we know that they have their premium accounts, but where else are they going to make money from? Is it going to be they're going to be using my images to make money from?
Where's the stock photography business starts up?
Boy, what a great resource. So the thing is, people are shooting more photos than ever before, and the hard drive has become like this digital shoebox in a way, whereas we put our photos onto this hard drive and then we never look at them again. And for people that are educated with Lightroom, or unfortunately, rest in peace, Aperture, or whatever, in the workflow, they can organize it. But for the majority of the photographers out there, the majority of consumers are shooting either on a camera to the phone, or even more so just with their phone, and they need to organize their images. And that is something that no one's really figured out quite how to do well. The killer app doesn't exist in the world of cloud storage. So it's like a race to the next $1 billion purchase from Facebook, because someone will come up with this app and I'm like, oh my God, this is the answer. Right. And maybe it's somewhat automated, who knows? But then they'll get gobbled up by Zuckerberg and crew.
I think we think about this, and as we progress through this conversation, I'm thinking there are two different conversations to be had here, right? So there's the pro workflow, which is what we're doing, right? So, you have raw images and you have terabytes, or in Martin's case, petabytes of data that you need to keep in the cloud, and it's a professional workflow, which is, I would say, substantially different from a consumer-based workflow, where you're the Facebooker, you're taking pictures, you're putting them on Facebook, Instagram, you're doing videos on Vine, you're having fun, you got pictures of the kids' first steps, you want to share that with grandma. That kind of thing is different than having paying clients that are expecting excellence, and you need redundancy of your raw images just in case, right? So is this, and I would argue, as we talked about before with Apple in particular, and I'd say Google too, are going after that consumer base, right? It's not necessarily the professionals out there. It's here are professionals, and there's a level down, the advanced amateurs and semi-pros, and then down from that, the pyramid base gets bigger when you start with people that are just getting excited about photography, and then they're buying, and now they want to learn this, and that's a big chunk of people, right? So maybe these guys, and the other guys are looking at those people as this is the target, and there's more than enough of those people to go around, right? Maybe.
Oh, 100%. There is way more money in consumers with photography than there is with professionals. I mean, the whole career of being a professional photographer where you do nothing but make images and sell them, that career is becoming increasingly difficult by the hour.
Yeah.
For that to be your sole income stream. And it would be a mistake for any photographer to say, oh, I'm just going to make all my money off of just selling images. But the consumers, they're just like snapping pictures of everything, and they don't want to organize it. They want it done for them. They want simplicity. And that, like you said, is where the money's at. And it's smart of these companies to go after the consumers, because I think the money that comes from those consumer technologies could potentially go upstream and work its way into the world of professional photographers.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you look at, speaking of professional photographers, Martin, you look at folks like SmugMug, Zenfolio, Photo Shelter. Those guys are on the other side, right? So they've got a professional workflow, notwithstanding raw images in some cases, right? So are they sort of protected against this kind of, I mean, they don't necessarily care about the consumer or the happy snapper on that side. They'd probably want to avoid those people because, like SmugMug, it's a paid service. Those people aren't coming to you. So is that the future? Is that the split right there where we have, companies like this company, what's their name, Stream Nation, and Google and Apple and Adobe in some cases servicing the consumers, and then Adobe with their foot in both sides, and then SmugMug, Zenfolio, and Photo Shelter servicing the pros on the other side. Is that the mix you think that could happen?
I think it could be, but I'm probably not the best person to talk about that because I've never really got it. I used to do Photo Shelter. I was never impressed with their raw processing. They actually ignored all of the any changes that you made to raw files. So for a while, I used to have a pretty good workflow where I'd do all of my changes. I'd do all of my dust removal and stuff like that, and then upload it to Photo Shelter, and then see all of my dust on the photos in the system. And I asked them about it. They didn't have a way of actually parsing the XMP files and things like that. So I had to move to JPEG with my Photo Shelter account. That was a year or so ago. I actually closed that account when I started doing all of my stock through Offset. But they may have changed that now, so I'm not sure. But it was I enjoyed working with Photo Shelter. They're a great team. They really there's a lot of things that they do to support. They do a lot of education. So I'm pretty sure that probably SmugMug is doing similar sort of stuff. I've never really used it, so I can't say for sure. But I think that it's really a different service, and I doubt that many people are considering. I know that you could, but I don't think that many people are going to be considering a Photo Shelter or a SmugMug or what was the other one you mentioned? Zenfolio.
Zenfolio,
yeah. I doubt that people are considering that their backup. I know that you could, but I think it's a backup if you ever had something catastrophic happen. But I don't think they're really competing because they're really different objectives. I agree with what Julio's saying that it's probably more for people that don't want to figure it out for themselves, and just if it's backed up in the cloud, if everything that you own is actually in this Stream Nation service, it would worry me more. Not for the fault tolerance. It would worry me more if they just went away.
Yes.
Because they're not their statements. They're not going to sell your work and stuff like that. That would be suicide. But I think that they, the goal of the free app is really to get you into the Stream Nation plans. And once you're in there, I would you'd be foolish to have that be your only backup. You'd really got to make sure that it's a backup of something that you've got locally. And if that's the case, then I don't think it's the best solution because Backblaze is much cheaper and you still get a backup. So it really is for the consumer that wants to actually access their work from multiple devices really easily. But again, I mean, I mentioned earlier about the way I do it, where I drop my final JPEGs into a folder. that folder, although it's specified in iTunes to sync to my iPad and my iPhone, it's actually in Dropbox. So that automatically sends it to everything else as well. So they're all sort of interlinked. And I think once you've figured out a few things like that, you don't necessarily need this kind of service.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head with the fright thing, because that's what scares me when I see a service like, like Stream Nation, and I'm sure they're awesome, and I'm sure they have the best intentions, and they're gonna crush it as much as they can. But then, the consumer and the photographer in me looks back historically on all the carcasses along the road of tech, that are back there, that were, that had great intentions, and now they're gone, like MySpace and all these other guys, So, no offense, MySpace, I know you're still kicking, but I'm just thinking, like, okay, it's gonna have to be something. It's gonna have to be a golden goose in there for me to want to commit my images and raw files to you, even if it's just my JPEGs. That's a lot of work to be putting up there, and then one day you got to think of the Holocaust kind of scenario, and everything just goes away and it's over, and you lose. You get an email one day that says, like I got an email from Blip TV. I had some videos on there, and I got an email one day that says, "Hey, we've changed our business model, and we've deleted your videos, by the way." What? Are you kidding me? I was paying,
Right.
So it's just ridiculous, So that kind of stuff just makes me want to go buy more Drobos, and just keep filling them up or something. I don't know. What do you think, G? Is there a solution to this? Because you're digital. If your city, you're in Austin, right? If your city gets hit by an EMP pulse, you're screwed. Everything's gone.
Yeah, at that point, I'm worried about more stuff than my photographs. I'm gonna get like a leather jacket with spikes and an old Ford and put the jacket on it.
2 men into 1 man leaves.
That's it. Thunderdome. If we look at like how we had like floppy disks, and then we have optical media, and then optical media goes away, and now we kind of have hard drives, and hard drives eventually will get replaced by solid state, and then we also have the cloud. And I think that going forward, at least for me, as I see myself doing more and more of my workflow in the cloud. So like when I'm traveling, I shoot to my iPad, and when I'm in Wi-Fi, and sometimes when I'm not on Wi-Fi, I let it back it all up, and it goes 2 places. It goes to Google Drive, which makes these amazing auto awesomes and stuff for G+, and then it goes to Dropbox. And then probably I'll also have it go to the Apple Cloud service, and let it all get figured out. But I think what's going to be amazing, and I think Adobe's kind of ahead of the curve, is when you can go into Lightroom and you can shoot into it in your tablet, hopefully soon video, and then you get on your computer in your office or whatnot, and you have everything there, and there it is.
Right.
So what if you're traveling and you're shooting, and then you have the person behind the scenes working on your photos? That's kind of where I see this stuff going, at least for me. But as far as having Drobos and all that, for me, it's
you want in the cloud. I understand.
Yeah.
That's utopian. That's a utopian vision. But then when you think about the cloud, you guys, I know you both know this, but the cloud is hard drives with a terms of service attached to it, right?
It is, right. That's why
it's not like it's going into this mythical, bulletproof storage area. It's actually going to somebody's server farm and living on hard drives over there that you have to pay to access, or so some other way commit to be able to access. So it's not like it's a different tech than you have on your computer, right? So I don't know. I'm scared. I think the bottom line is I'm scared. I keep making more data, and I have no place to put it.
Well, that's the thing. We're making tons of data now. We're starting to shoot 4K video. Well, what do you think's next? It's 8K.
Yeah.
At some point, the data is going to be so intense. We're going to, of course, get bigger hard drives and solid state and whatnot, but we got to be able to have a solution to manage the data appropriately.
By then no one will care, because we'll be out of water and fossil fuels, so people will forget all about that stuff when that happens.
Right. The thing is, though, we have to keep it the relationship as well, because I bought a 4 terabyte hard drive last week for less than $160.
Yeah, me too.
And
I got two of
you know,
those. Yep.
I mean, I've started to now when I add storage or replace a faulty hard drive in my Drobos, I'm buying 4 terabyte ones. And even with the Western Digital, I think it's the black I forget which one's the mid-range, a good NAS drive, it's still only costing me just over $200, and that's in Japan, so it may be even less in the US now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
4 terabytes of data, even if you don't trust it, buy 2 and mirror them. I think that I still would like to see it in my, actually in my my office first initially. But as to what Julio was saying there, I get it in your shooting regime, the way you actually work, it makes a lot of sense. For me, when I travel, I've usually got either no or virtually no internet. I mean, I'm talking like the middle of nowhere in Iceland, in Antarctica, Namibia. I'm in a desert and stuff like that. So a lot of the time, although in Japan we've got coverage everywhere, it's brilliant. So in my Japan tours and when I'm out doing personal projects, I could shoot exactly the way that Julio's saying. But a lot of the time, that doesn't make sense to me. I've got to have local copies. And so, I mean, I would still prefer if I'm just everything sits locally, and then the cloud for me is just a backup.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a scary issue. It is definitely a scary issue. But yeah, like G says, it's these 4K cameras, and G, I know you're going to talk about one a little bit later. They're generating data, and we're shooting more, and we're getting better cell phones that are more and more of our lives are digital. It's not just photos. It's photos and audio and text and it's media. We're comprised of media and expected instant on bulletproof connectivity. That's the norm. The internet now, I think someone said this way back like 5 or 10 years ago. We're talking about how the internet would become so ubiquitous that it would be like your water and your plumbing system in your house. When you turn the faucet, it just works. You don't care that it works. You just know that it's going to work every single time you turn it on. Back then, internet was just sort of ramping up to becoming ubiquitous, and now we're there, right? You expect it's just there. You walk in your house and you're going to be connected to your Wi-Fi. You don't have to do anything. You just know it's there. And when all that, if something happens and that goes away, like Martin, you're traveling and you're in Namibia or you're in Iceland in the middle of nowhere, and it breaks. It just breaks. So
one thing that you made me think of there as well, Frederick, is I've got the Apple Wi-Fi boxes, the new tall tower Wi-Fi stations, and I can sit on my 15-inch Retina MacBook Pro in my living room downstairs, and I actually sync my Lightroom libraries between the two. It's 5.6 gigabytes. It takes about 30 seconds to copy over. I mean, even just having Wi-Fi was amazing for a while, but these things are getting so fast. It would have taken me a week to copy that on one of my first computers, probably more. Right. So I mean, everything. It's like Moore's law. It just keeps doubling every year, and the prices are coming down. So we live in a great age. I think that we're almost there. You were saying earlier, Frederick, we were born like 10 years too early or so.
Yeah.
I agree, but I think that we're already seeing a lot of this stuff come true.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't even talked about the wearable stuff that's coming, because I'm looking forward to the day. Because like I said, I just got this Xbox One, right? And I can walk into my living room and say, I don't want to say it too loud because it'll work. I can walk into my living room and say Xbox on, and it will come on. And then I could sit on the couch, not touching anything. I could say, Xbox YouTube, or go to YouTube. It will go to YouTube. Or I could say Xbox Skype Martin Bailey. It'll call you. I can have a conversation with you. I was talking to Julio from my couch the other day, and the camera's following me around the room.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's just crazy where this stuff is going, and it's still, you can see where things are going to start melding. Like the Xbox one day will go away, and it'll just be part of the TV, which will be part of the wall, which will be surrounded in smart glass, So.
It's going to happen. I was pretty impressed. A few days ago, I was sitting there trying to get my wife interested in her iPhone, and I clicked Siri on, and we use it in Japanese, and I said, so, hey Siri, how old are you? And she said, I'm at least old enough to act as your assistant. And I'm like, Okay, yeah, that was a pretty cool answer. I don't know if I
Yeah.
don't know how it says it in English, but it was, the Japanese translation is pretty much I'm old enough to be like a competent assistant for you, and I thought,
Nice.
oh, that's pretty cool. It's just
Nice.
just things. I know that someone's sitting there anticipating that question and giving her something to say, but
Yeah.
it's artificial, semi pseudo artificial
And
intelligence.
hopefully
It's
it's
become
artificial because, I don't want to get to the point where it's like, close the pod bay doors, Hal. I can't do
yeah
that.
yeah
I don't need that in my house. Close the garage, Hal. I can't do that right now, Frederick.
yeah
That
It's
would be
coming,
fantastic.
man. I mean, your fridge. You're gonna be like, I need a beer, and fridge is like, nah, you're over your calories for the day. You
Yeah,
know.
exactly. You've had enough. There's some nice, cool water in there, Frederick, but I'm sorry I can't allow you to have any beer. And I've locked the garage so you can't drive.
that would be good. That
That
would
would be good.
solve, that would get rid of a lot of accidents. But
Yeah.
that's really funny though, isn't it? And you can imagine I think that it's there's been talk for years about once your fridge gets down to like you've only got say half a bottle of milk left, it'll automatically order you some more.
Yeah.
So we'll be sitting there and all of a sudden someone knocks on the door and says, "Here's your groceries that your fridge ordered." It's
Oh
pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah. I'm sure Amazon is working on the Amazon
The
Fire
drone.
Fridge.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have it on the battle plans. Amazon
Yeah.
Fire Fridge coming soon. All right, guys. I'm gonna skip this next story. We can move this to next week. But let's before I continue. So you guys know we started this show called All About the Gear, right? So that I host with Doug Kay, who does a fantastic job. He gets gear in, he puts it through its paces, and then we get in a hangout, and I pepper him with questions about that particular piece of gear, and we dive into the nuts and bolts of that. So this latest episode, we talked about Julio, the GH4. So that episode just went live today, and we tore it to pieces and went inside it and talked about it, and we even had Mr. Dave Dugdale, who's been on the show. He's from Learning DSLR Video, who did a fantastic review of the GH4. He joined the hangout, and we all just talked about the camera from every conceivable, well, many conceivable angles, not all conceivable angles. But we talked about and got to the root of who it's for, what are the issues with the camera, what's good about it, the good, the bad, the ugly, all that stuff. So if you want to check that out, just go to thisweekinphoto.com/gear, and that will take you to the All About the Gear area on This Week in Photo, where you can see that show. Plus, the previous show was about the Sony a6000, which is an amazing camera. People are just lusting over that camera. I had a bunch of people in Paris on Valerie Jardin's workshop that I was just on, had that particular camera, and they had just gotten it before the workshop and were blown away at the image quality and the speed and the focusing and just how it was hard to miss a shot with that particular camera, especially in street photography. So definitely check it out. It's at thisweekinphoto.com/gear is our All About the Gear show. All right, guys, let's move into some listener Q&A. This is the segment where we answer a couple of questions that have been at the top of some of our listeners' minds. And this week's question is from Mark Stowe. He says, I work as an associate photographer in a studio, and occasionally the scenario takes place in which we both may review images and to make a Lightroom collection of the client's favorites. I may then take the project for retouching, and I need a simple way to export the Lightroom collection along with all its metadata, but not the images themselves. So the metadata, but not the images themselves, so he can continue working at his computer. So it sounds like he wants the XMP files, but not the raw files that he can then connect, do some changes to, or keyword and tag, and then reconnect it to the raw data or the main Lightroom library later. So Martin Bailey, I'm going to throw this to you first. I know you've had some experience poking around in Lightroom libraries, and you're somewhat of an expert in there. What do you think about this question?
Yeah, I think it's to do what he wants to do. You can just go to the file menu and export as catalog. So you select your collection that you've created with all of your files in, and then when you go to export it, there's a number of checkboxes, and you can say whether you want to include the files or not. And if you uncheck that, then it will just export. It'll create a catalog. So you will have to split your catalogs just for this scenario. I like to keep everything in one database for searchability and all of that. Yeah. But for this particular workflow scenario, I think it's possibly an option. Just export as catalog, and then you open that catalog, and it only contains the images that you had in your collection. and all of the XMP, or all of the metadata is included in the catalog, and even if you don't have the images, it will remember that in the catalog. So then later you could then import that, but I'm not really sure how you would go about doing that. You might, but when you go back, you'd have to figure it out, sort of make sure that it actually worked on the return. To get it out of Lightroom, you can use export as catalog, but then you'd have to figure out how to get it back in. I know that you can import, but if all you want to do is work on a certain subset of images, continue to work with them in that catalog. And I think that at the very minimum, what you would do at the end is, once you want to put those back into a larger catalog, you may be able to import it, but at the very least, what you can do is just make sure that you have the images all selected, hit the S key to save all of the metadata, and then it's all in the XMP files as well. And so then all you would need to do is to just sync that folder in Lightroom. Put those images with the XMP files back into your main library, into your the same location as where they were originally, and then sync the metadata back in. Sync the folder. It'll update all of the metadata, and you get your changes back. So it's certainly doable. There's a little bit of a messing around to do. But I think probably exporting as catalog is the only way I can think of doing this relatively easily.
I think you're right. I mean, and then the brute force way of doing it would be when you export those images as catalog out of Lightroom and you make all your changes to the metadata externally, say they're on an external hard drive or something, you could remove those images from your main library so that when you import them, you don't get the flag that says these are duplicate images or whatever. Yeah. So you re-import the new, fresh images with their new metadata back into your library and back into the general prison population.
Well, the thing is, though, he's saying that he doesn't want to actually export the images. He just wants to export so
just the meta,
But I mean, what you're saying, I would say that would be a better way to work. And then when you're done, you can even export the original files. So when he's done in one catalog, export the files to a location and then just sync that or re-import them, like you say. There's certainly ways to do it without having to jump through too many loopholes.
Yeah, I think that's what I would do. I mean, I like messing with XMP files and all that stuff, and or otherwise diving into the database that Lightroom wants to see. I'm not comfortable with doing that. I'd rather work the way Lightroom engineers intended and export that data and then re-import that data later, and then it's all good. It may take a little longer, it may take more space, but I understand his question. The impetus of his question is probably speed, right? So just exporting the metadata or the XMP files is going to be much faster than doing the entire raw library of that selection. But I don't know. I'd probably suck it up and do the whole thing. Julio, what about you? You have anything to add to that?
If I'm exporting metadata XMP files, the photos go with it. I'm not comfortable with having them stay separate. When you start dealing with a lot of files, man, you kind of getting into some dangerous water there.
Right.
Right. So I would say experiment, like what Martin was saying, in that regard, on a small library where they're duplicates, and you can, if you make a mistake, it's okay. Really proceed with caution in this regard.
Just let me just point out, though, he's not, what I was saying doesn't actually export the XMP files. You don't mess with that. All of the information is in the catalog, so it won't write the information back to XMP files until it sees the original files. So it's
okay.
I agree with you, Julio. You don't want to be taking XMP files away without the originals. It's really about keeping the information in a catalog.
I think the takeaway from this would be for this listener. What was his name again? His name was Mark Stowe. For Mark Stowe to go in and experiment on some non-critical data, and go through some dress rehearsals and see if you can get it to work. Find the holes. Find what particular workflow works best, and then do that. Don't do this on a real job. Do it on some
So here's an insight I just had. So we're obviously talking about a high level workflow, right? And then we were talking earlier about the Stream Nation.
Yeah.
Can you imagine trying to have this conversation on workflow with say like your mom or your spouse or somebody that's not like technically inclined, it ain't happening, man. And that is where these cloud apps, the one that really gets it right, is going to just change everything.
One click. One click, yeah. Like Steve Jobs was famous for saying, he gives people what they don't know they need yet. So like with this stuff, it's like, give us something to simplify that we don't know that we need yet. And we're like, oh, of course I need a little piece of glass that I can touch and make calls on. Yeah. So cool. All right, guys, let's jump into the Picks of the Week segment. This is the segment where you guys can recommend something to the This Week in Photo audience as long as it is somehow related to photography. Martin Bailey, I'm going to let you go first. What's your pick of the week?
I'm going to pick Dave Delnier's new Shoot the Look videos from Craft and Vision.
Oh, okay.
The great videos. Basically, Dave has works through a number of commercial shoots, the look that you often need to get in certain commercial shoots. And great videos. They're available now. A couple of weeks ago they were released, I think. You can get to those either on the Craft and Vision website, or I've got a little write-up on it on my website at mbp.ac/stl. Shoot the Look, STL.
Shoot the Look. I love it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. See, and that's a cheap pick, because how much does that cost? Like $5 or something?
Oh no, the videos are I'm sure there's more costs involved. I think it was I'll check. I think it was like $30.
Okay.
It's pretty substantial. Okay. The Craft and Vision pricing's gradually going up a little bit.
As it should. Yeah. That's good. I mean, because he started, everything was $4.99 or $5.
Yeah.
$5 for a PDF, and now that party's over. I think it's time to get paid what these things are actually worth, so they can stay in business and continue making awesome books. So cool.
Yeah.
All right, Giulio Shorio, what's your pick of the week?
My pick of the week is a miniature photographer. I'm just kidding, but there he is.
What is that? I can't even see that. What is that?
It's a super, super tiny photographer.
Okay.
Tiny.
All right.
I was actually I had him here because if we're going to talk about the curved sensor, the first photo, they did a diorama, and I was like, I can shoot a diorama with any lens.
Oh, nice. Nice. And then I skipped the story, and you're like, man.
Arg. No, my pick of the week is this beast mode of a camera. It's the FZ1000 Lumix. This is I just got this to evaluate like a week ago, and it's very surprised at this camera.
What is it? It's a fixed lens, it looks like, right?
It's a fixed lens. It's an equivalent 25 to 400 millimeter lens and 35 millimeter.
25 to 400.
Yeah. It's a. I mean, look at it. It's like a tuna can.
It's crazy. But so you can see the flag on the surface of the moon with that.
It's really impressive. Like, I've never used a bridge camera before. I used to call these all-in-ones. Yeah. But I guess they're called bridge cameras because you're building a bridge to something. I don't know, but it shoots 4K video, and it's kind of like it's very similar to a GH4 in operation. It's got wireless flash, manual audio inputs, like a mic port, manual audio control. You got the flip-out screen.
What?
Wi-Fi, NFC. It's got the same. I think it has even the same EVF as the GH4. It's and it's. I think it retails for like $900.
What?
Oh, I did mention it was 4K, right?
Yeah, and it's 4K. Wow.
And it's super light. And one thing I found out is that it uses the same batteries as like the old Lumix G5, so you can buy these on Amazon for like $10.
Wow. Wow. So is that thing out? Because I heard rumor that it was coming. That's the first time I've seen it. Is it shipping now, or is
End of the month? End of the month.
End of the month it's coming out.
Yeah, okay. But I'm gonna ship this to you the next day or so you can.
Well, don't send it to me. Send it to Doug.
I'm gonna send it to Doug.
Yeah, send it to Doug.
But let me show you. This is interesting. So size-wise, it's actually a little bigger than the GH4 with the 35-28.
It looks like the GH4's fat cousin.
Yeah, it is. It's one of my assistants mentioned, she said it's girthy. So,
but it's mostly water weight, so it's okay.
right. I like this camera though. I mean, it is like, it's got the 1-inch sensor, so it's a good size sensor for this kind of thing. I think as a travel camera, it's a ton of fun. What I've been doing, because I'm not a nature photographer, but we have all sorts of wildlife that lives in downtown Austin, and so I just been carrying this thing in my backpack. When I see something, I don't have to think, wow, should I get this lens, get that lens, because I don't like to carry a lot of stuff. So I just turn this thing on, I zoom, and I'm able to get 4K video of, like, we have these guinea fowl in our neighborhood, and they've had a dozen chicks, and they just kind of wander.
Yeah.
You know,
Are you going to put some footage of that on YouTube so we can check it out?
I am. I'm going to put footage for people to download and all sorts of stuff. But
because I want to see the low light performance of that thing. I want to see, rolling shutter, all that stuff.
I'm going to let Doug test all that stuff. I'm going to let him do all the technical stuff. I'm just kind of doing the how would I use this camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow, 4K, huh? It's crazy. I was watching some YouTube videos today on 4K and just like the GH4 and different cameras like the Blackmagic cinema camera and all that. And because I was specifically wanting to know, okay, 4K, everybody's talking about 4K all the time, but nothing can display 4K. Not even my awesome Apple Cinema display can't show 4K. Mm-hmm. Nothing can show 4K pretty much right now, even though YouTube is accepting 4K and you can display it, but nothing on the other side can see it, right? So the consensus that I saw online mostly from even Dave Dugdale echoed this was, when you shoot in 4K, you're future-proofing, right? Because eventually things will be 4K, right? So that's a given. So you're future-proofing, and your grandkids will thank you for shooting 4K. But then also you can scale down the 4K, and it looks insane when you take a 4K image and scale it down to 1040. It just looks insanely beautiful. Plus, it gives you the capability to push in on the footage. So if you shoot a 4K image, it's this big, but of course 1080 screen is, the dimensions are this big. You can zoom in on people's faces at 100% and still not have any interpolation occur or anything like that. So crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
There's a ton of benefits to 4K. I mean, I have the same display you do, but I still see a difference with 4K than I do with, say, 1080p. It's just like, an 8-megapixel still picture on your monitor versus a 2-megapixel still picture. You're going to see a difference, but I think, man, when the 4K displays come out for computers that are not, $5-6 grand, then it'll be like enhancing your images yet again without having to do any work.
Right. Right.
Yeah, those screens are coming. I was talking with some people at Azol, the people that make the crazily insane high quality displays, and they were saying that they are probably going to be working on one. Their biggest concern was the cost. They didn't want to. They were asking me how much I would pay for a 4K monitor.
Not much.
And I'm like, well, okay, I maybe wouldn't pay double what I'm paying for a normal monitor now. I'd pay a little bit more. But that, again, it's Moore's law. That's the next normal resolution.
Right.
So
even though they'll get us again, right? I mean, the jump from standard 640 by 480 to HD 16 by 9 widescreen, even 720, then 1080, that was a giant leap, and that was demonstrable in the store. You could say, you want this garbage over here, or do you want this beautiful, these leaves slow motion blowing? Okay, I'll take that one. Yeah. But the jump from 1080 to 4K, it's because people like me, I'm sitting in my living room, my TV's awesome, and I look at it, it's like beautiful. I'm like, how much more beautiful can it get? Especially considering my eyes are degrading over time.
That's a good point, though, because I mean the 4K TVs are becoming more popular. They're going to be mainstream over the next few years as well. Yeah. So I agree with what you're saying. Future proofing. You shoot in as high a quality as you can right now, because you're going to need it in a few years anyway, just to actually stay current.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think all we got to do is look at what Red's doing, because Red had 4K years ago, and people were like, "Oh, you're never gonna 4K is not gonna do any," and now it's like they're like on the 6K.
Yeah. They're on the 5K, 6K. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But
Sony are doing 8K.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
eventually, an 8K is like 7,600 pixels on the long end per frame of video. I mean, that's insane. At that point, are you? So much stuff comes up. It's just like, is it where's the decisive moment anymore? Is it in your computer? You kind of, I mean, there's so much stuff that comes up, and why at that point are you going to shoot just one still frame when you can shoot 8K video? Maybe at that point
That's
we're
what I was
doing it
gonna
in
say.
RAW.
Yeah. The decisive moment changes to the decisive minute, right? So now you have a full 60 seconds to figure out where that pole vaulter went over the pole at the right exact spot, and you can pull that off. But that's a whole nother. I've been experimenting with that, so I'm excited about that world. I think we're really, really close, and we're there for a lot of applications in terms of being able to shoot 4K video and harvest it, harvest your still photography out of it. We're not there for a lot of things, because, especially like on the GH4, you've got the micro four thirds sensor, which is not as low light capable as full frames right now. It's just basic math, but it's better than it was before. I mean, and it is highly capable for doing, I would say, pretty much everything a normal carbon-based life form might need, but when you get into shooting black cats in dark closets or things like that, or where you need that ultimate low light performance, of course, you're going to move to a full frame, go to something like the Sony A7S, which is, as Doug K is testing right now and showing on his Google Plus page, it's insane in low light. It's unreal in terms of like, okay, my eyes see darkness, this camera sees a fully realized low noise image, so crazy stuff. It's all good for us, though. It's all good for us photographers. All right, cool.
Absolutely.
All right, so my pick of the week, guys, is, so clearly I've been doing a lot of research into this video stuff and what it means for photographers and what's next. And I came across this channel on YouTube, which I've been addicted to. I think I've watched most of their videos already. But it's called Film Riot. FILMRIOT. It's from Revision 3. I know a bunch of people over there. They're really good people. They make some really good web shows. I think they're working with Callie Lewis, if I'm not mistaken. But the show is called Film Riot, and it is basically a series of short videos. Usually they're under 15 minutes or so, but they dissect a certain aspect of filmmaking and show you how to do it with your regular stuff. Like they had an episode on how to recreate the transporter effect from Star Trek, and you do it like this. You shoot this footage, you throw it into After Effects, you put this thing on there, you turn this knob, and boom, you got a transporter. How to build. I'm looking at the page now. Super speed. What gear you need for a pro shoot. They do short films. It's just a really well done, entertaining channel, and the host of that channel is just, you can tell he's been doing it for a couple of years, and he knows what he's doing, and it's just very clean and well produced. It's like something you'd see on TV, but with YouTube, let's say, lack of restriction. So it's definitely a cool channel. Definitely check it out and subscribe to it. I'm subscribed. I'm one of their 500,000 subscribers right now, so I feel like I'm late to the party. But I'm subscribed to them, and I think I'm late to the party because I'm just now becoming interested in all the stuff that 4K and video and the GH4 will let me do, and through the magic of the internet, and we're back to the whole bandwidth thing, I can educate myself and go experience all these cool resources now for this new shiny object that I'm interested in. So cool stuff. It's a good time to be a photographer. All right, guys, we are at the end, sadly, of another episode of This Week in Photo. I want to thank our sponsor for this episode, our good friends over at Squarespace.com, for their awesome support of the show. So, Mr. Martin Bailey, where can people go to keep up with your antics online and sign up for that workshop that you got lined up and all that good stuff?
Well, everything's on the top page at martinbaileyphotography.com or in the menus there. You can find everything there.
martinbaileyphotography.com. Excellent.
That's it.
And thanks for coming on, Martin. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I always feel, I always feel humbled when you come on. And Mr. Giulio Sciorio, also a pleasure having you on. Where can people go to connect with you?
Smallcamerabigpicture.com.
Small camera big. What's on that site, by the way? What kind of resources do you have?
I'm actually, we got some new stuff that's going to be launching soon about gear and lenses and stuff, but we got a lot of Lumix-oriented stuff and resources on workshops I got coming out. I have 3, one of which is with you, coming up here in the next couple weeks. All sorts of stuff. You just got to get in and dig and subscribe to the site because we got a lot of stuff coming out.
That's right. What's the work? So since you brought it up, what's the workshop that you're doing here with me?
It's about animated portraits and animated photography. We're going to talk about the concepts and then do a live shoot and show the whole workflow from capture to post.
Yes, and that's actually free. That's part of the This Week in Photo meetup. So go to meetup.com and search for This Week in Photo, or we'll have a link to it on the show notes, or go to Small Camera Big Picture, and Julio will have a link to it there. If it's not already full by the time you go there, I think they set the RSVP limit at something manageable because it's in a awesome space in Campbell, California, which is not gigantic. So if you're in the area, definitely sign up soon. And if you've already signed up and you don't plan on coming, don't RSVP. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. People do that all the time. They RSVP and then they don't come.
Yeah.
All right, cool guys. All right, and if listeners, be sure to check out the This Week in Photo website, obviously, at thisweekinphoto.com. And if you want to connect with me, you can always find me at my digital home on the web, and that's at frederickvan.com. And with that, it is time to take that lens cap off.